the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this episode of AVNation TV's Connected. I'm your host, David Danto, and I almost tripped over the words there because I have a co-host for this show. This is number 49. Number 50 is going to be a special live event from CES in Las Vegas. But here for number 49, AVNation TV's founder and my good friend Tim Albright is with us. Tim, say hi to everybody and introduce our guests.
Hello, sir. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you in person or virtually. First and foremost, Carolina Milanesi. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And our good friend, Mr. Steve Koenig. Welcome, sir.
Hello. Good to be here.
So Steve, I guess the first fair question about CES, and in fact, all trade shows, it's been an interesting year. We've been going to trade shows. People have been going home sick, and there have been jokes about that. Are we ready for trade shows so far? Is it done? Are companies now saying, look, I don't need this anymore? It's been 2-3 years. What's your take? What's the CTA's take on how important CES is and how being there in person together is?
Well, if there was a lesson from the season of the pandemic, it was the importance of in-person events. I mean, you can virtualize the human condition and business and so forth for a season, but not in perpetuity. And that's why we saw so many trade shows, including CES, which really blazed a trail last year. And yes, there were challenges, and some of those challenges still remain. But the importance of gathering in person to conduct business, for networking, for partnerships, business development, and so forth is crucial. And we're delighted to be back in Las Vegas January 5th through 8th in just a couple months.
Yeah, I loved CES last year because there was one of the spikes that were going on in COVID at the time. So there were only about 40,000 people there, which is a huge amount of people for a trade show, but a small amount of people for CES. So I assume we're expecting more than that this year at this point?
We are. In fact, we're expecting around 100,000 attendees from over 150 countries. We've had a tremendous response internationally and domestically as well. Again, people are really craving in-person experiences, gathering in person for business development, networking. So yeah, it's going to be a much bigger event, and CES is building back. And it's going to be fantastic to have all those folks gathering there. We're going to have over 2,000 exhibiting companies, I meant to say. So yeah, it's going to be a fantastic event.
That's great.
You're kind of putting me off, Steve.
I was going to ask you, Caroline. I love Steve, but he has to say that. So you as an external analyst who has attended many times and didn't attend last year, what's your take on the same questions?
So I'm going, and I'll be there from 4 days, so a long stretch as well. But I am doing the show differently, and I was in Vegas a couple of weeks ago for a different show, and I have to say, I had a little bit of palpitation as I was walking through the Mandalay Bay with thousands of other people around me, knowing that they're coming from all places, and all of that. I agree with Steve that there's a need to come together. But I also wish we didn't just rest on that as an industry, just say, oh, we want to get together, because I can tell you that from someone who's been traveling for the past 6 weeks, I'm kind of done with the coming together with people unless I get more out of it, right? And I think that's where I would like, not just CES, but any show. I'm going to NWC as well in February, to really think more strategically about what people want out of this show. So the way that I'm going to do CES this year is skip the big press conferences and kind of big events, and just watch those, from the comfort of my room or somewhere, because I don't need to be in the room necessarily to watch what I can see from a screen. but spend more time in meetings, which is shocking because I already had a lot of meetings, in previous year. But I think that's your value that you're talking about, Steve, right? Is people coming together behind closed doors to make deals, discuss where the industry is going and all that goodness. So that's how I am going to do the show. And then looking at, as I always do, the smaller companies that, as an industry analyst, I'm blessed to know what is going to be going on at CES way before CES from an announcement perspective. So I don't necessarily have to spend time with the big names, but there are all these smaller companies that don't have the opportunity to have an analyst reach or to have their own shows. As we heard a lot of companies actually, especially from the PC world, that are not going to have a presence at CES this year. Or
they'll have a presence, but off the show floor.
Correct. And so that's who I want to, have the opportunity to meet and see the products. And, the part of being live is that you can see and touch and experience the products that, is really hard to do over a video screen.
Right. And and thank you for sharing that, Carolina. And everybody's got their strategies for the show in a good season or a challenging season. It doesn't matter. We all have our tactics and challenges for approaching CES, and 2023 will be no different. I'm pleased to say that we also we'll be hosting a virtual event. So some of those conference sessions and keynotes, like you mentioned, will be available on the virtual platform. And so those folks that can't travel or don't wish to travel to CES will be able to take in the show virtually on that platform. We're also, as you guys may know, health regulations and so forth have shifted and changed, and we are providing COVID tests for those that are concerned or want to be safe. We're encouraging in vaccination. We're not requiring it. Masks are optional, but it still remains, I think, even today, somewhat of a fluid situation. So at CES.tech, we have our health protocols and so forth, so attendees can check there routinely, regularly, just to make sure what's the state of affairs there for different regulations. But that's it so far. It's I would say it's going to probably be very akin to business travel and getting on a plane, where you see people masked, unmasked, and so forth, and that's totally legit. But the last thing that you said, Carolina, about being able to discover those smaller companies, the SMEs, beyond the usual suspects, that's also part of the gold, I think, with CES, is that's very tough to do, scanning online, scrolling around, and being able to walk the show floor and make those discoveries, and even more, have important conversations, which is also challenging to do in a virtualized event. That's going to be, I think, one of the real value adds for a lot of attendees at CES 2023.
So, Steve, let me just take a second to jump on a soapbox before Tim asks his next question. I do want to say kudos to you and to the CTA and to Gary Shapiro and everybody else for keeping that door open of virtual attendance. We just, as we're recording this, we're just a few days past a Zoomtopia that Eric Yuan did, and you could attend that show virtually or in person. Your show to, again, you're not going to have the meetings, but you can attend it. During the pandemic, we realized that we busted down a door for the disabled and the homebound and the people that couldn't be at these events, and we're making it available to them. And I, for one, have taken a pledge that I'm not going to be involved in an event that doesn't provide that ability for people who can't come. So again, kudos to you guys for leading the way and for all the events that are doing that. And I'm sorry to jump in front of you, Tim. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So Steve, Carolina made a mention here of the large amount of travel that we've all done here this year. What did you guys learn last year on ways to make CES, not that it isn't already enticing, but make it, what's the carrot to bring people out to Vegas and hang out with 100 to 150,000 people if that's not their jam?
Yeah, well, I think, as always, CES is the most influential tech event on the planet, and where each and every year we write a new chapter of technology innovation, and there's a long list of incredible announcements, we hear from technology business leaders from around the world. This year, we have keynotes from AMD, from BMW, from John Deere, which are going to be very interesting. So I think the old reasons are the new reasons. It's really, I think, crucial for anybody in the tech industry to attend CES, hopefully in person. But to David's point, if you're not able to travel or don't wish to travel, you can take it in virtually and still participate. And to David's point, that has definitely expanded the audience. But again, being there in person has its benefits of being able to have those conversations and get your hands on technologies, demos, and so forth. It's going to be a great event.
The way I think about it is that the shows like CES and NWC have two different audiences. Well, actually, three different audiences, right? You have the vendors that want to reach out. You have the people that want to do business with those brands who want to then connect. And then you have a whole host of people that want to learn about the industry and want to make sure that they're on top of things. And that's where I think the hybrid part has the most opportunity, right? I don't need to necessarily be in Vegas if I want to know the latest trend on VR and AR or whatever the case might be, right? And that's where your conference track being hybrid. And if I can make a criticism to last year, there were too few of those that were actually designed to have a hybrid component. And I would like to see more, even if that means that, maybe the price tag goes up a little bit to be part of that. Because CES has always had a role to play in informing about technology, right? In having people learn about technology and the trends and everything else. And I think that's what the hybrid event could do really, really well. Even so that the people that are there don't necessarily have to choose between, do I get more meetings in, or do I go to this talk that I really want to do? Because I know that I can get it on demand afterwards. So I think there's, from a business model perspective, there's opportunity there to do more with the show.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think for an event of CES size, I don't ever expect us to have a digital twin of the event. Smaller events, that's easy to pull off. The virtual component, certainly when you add that to the physical component, that's very expensive. It's very expensive, and especially live
Sure.
video and recording and so forth. So I think what we're endeavoring to do is, for virtual attendees, we're not trying to replicate the entire event, but really hit the high points, the keynotes, and like you said, some of those important conference sessions. Those will be available even for if you're at the show. I know all of us, we can't be in three places at one time. We haven't worked that out yet, but being able to come back and say, I missed that conference session and I can take it in virtually after I'm home from CES, that's a real benefit. So these are the things that we're trying to do. And then also just provide a modicum of interaction on the digital platform for people again. And I think that's what we can expect in the future. To David's point, I think the world has changed in the conference industry, and hybrid events are definitely the path forward for the foreseeable future. But again, I think really for a lot of conferences, including CES, what we really want is for people to be able to gather in person and be able to do that comfortably. And that's really our goal. The virtualized event is really more of a supportive structure to enable, expand the audience, and then that long tail of content. But people can choose however they wish to take in the event.
Steve, I disagree with you. I was there with you last year. I did see you in three places at one time. We were every time we turned around, we were bumping into each other. I don't know if it'll be the same with 100,000 people as it was with 40, but there'll be a lot of bumping in no matter what. So and I agree with you. The interesting thing about CES, and I've tried to articulate this over the years, and I don't know that I've done a really great job, or if I'm going to do a really great job now, But sometimes, you get into that forest and trees situation. You can attend the announcements from company A and company B and all the way through to company Z and understand everything that they're planning on doing, but you don't really get a sense of what's happening. But when you go to CES and you go to some of the conferences and you walk the show floor, you get this 30,000 foot view of what the heck's happening over the next 18 months. And you can almost in your mind make some real conclusions that I've made over the years. And I actually want to talk about some of these in terms of themes. But before I get into that, that's really the value that I have of attending. Of course, it's creating content and learning about what's going on, and getting to touch and feel things, and in some cases getting some samples. Although that's waning quite a bit as well because companies are not as free to give them out anymore. But that's the value that I get, is really just, wow, now I really understand what's going on for the next 18 months. And that's going to affect my judgment across everything that I do in technology for the next year. And I don't think I get that from any other trade show, not even the ones that are more specific to the areas that I focus on. It's really this, wow, I understand what's coming on with technology. I can give you a million examples, of the first video recorders or the first digital cameras, or when LEDs became something that wasn't such a crazy thing. You could get them a dime a dozen anywhere. These are things that you picked up at the show. You realize, my God, this is going to change the world. And then over the next 6 or 8 months, it did. So that would be my big recommendation for going, is while virtual is a great component, although I did really regret getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning to see something that somebody pre-recorded for YouTube. It's understanding what those themes are.
Right.
And I'll segue at that point, and let's talk about some of the themes, because you and I probably, Steve, one of our many conversations last year was around metaverse. There were some controversies around it, and we should talk about metaverse in terms of what its status is right now. I think you and I both said that it's a future thing, that it's not right now, that companies are gearing up to deal with it. But we saw the hype engine. I know I saw the hype engine moving a little too quickly. You did as well. There's been some crashing and burning around that as well. Is that still going to be one of the bigger themes this year, or is everybody kind of stepping away?
No, I think it will continue to be a dominant theme, certainly a very talked about theme at CES, and by extension, Web3, which would pull in blockchain and crypto and NFTs. Really, all these
after
things.
this week.
Yeah, yeah, adding up to the next generation of the internet, which is really what we're talking about when we describe all these different things. But yeah, you're right about the hype, and I think that's one thing that I'm looking forward to at CES 2023 is I think we will start to bring some clarity and some substance to this trend, because there has been no shortage of hype. The metaverse is the new buzzword. It takes me back to like circa 2010 when IoT, Internet of Things, was the brand new buzzword, and everybody at CES was saying we have an IoT device, which really just meant we had a connected device, but they had to use IoT and work that into the marketing language. So what are we going to see at CES for metaverse? Well, again, substance, I think clarity on what this is, and that'll be, I think, illustrated in two ways. One is use cases. There's been a lot of dialogue, or what are the use cases, both for consumer and for enterprise. And in the consumer space, I think gaming is obviously the low-hanging fruit, also social, potentially, but other areas as well, like fitness. And we may see some use case examples around that. People pay a lot of money to go to hot yoga and Orange Theory and some of these other studios to work out. Well, it makes sense that you could have that in a virtualized and get that same kind of group experience, shared immersive experience in your home. And for the enterprise, things like digital twin and other collaboration tools, I think are on the ticket for CES 2023, thinking about metaverse, which is, again, shared immersive online experiences in effect. But what's the strategy? And this is the other thing I think we'll learn about. For the consumer, it's probably, when you think about gaming, competition, but also connection. And in the enterprise space, I think it's collaboration and simulation. Those are the strategies there. But I remind everybody that a lot of parallels have been drawn with Ernest Cline's novel Ready Player One as like, okay, is this where we're headed? And Ready Player One was set in the year 2045, not 2025. So yes, this is, and it's important for us to acknowledge that technology trends, certainly the more important ones, tend to evolve and develop over a long time series, and this can be decades. And we've witnessed this with the internet itself, and that's why I think Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, his comment on metaverse was profound. He said, we're starting to talk about this and develop things very similarly to how we were talking about and developing things for the internet in the early 1990s. And back then, how could we ever imagine the things that we're doing today? And so I think similarly with this next generation of the internet, we're in the same place. It's hard for us to really imagine. We have sci-fi examples and so forth, but there's a lot of innovation that we're going to see at CES that constitute the building blocks of metaverse. And it's going to be really interesting. There's an exhibitor that was with us in San Francisco for one of our media promotional events just a couple of weeks ago. The company's name is OVR, and that stands for olfactory VR, and they have digitized smell. And so these different sensory experiences, haptics, better hardware, and then altogether new things like digitizing smell, this is the kind of things that we'll be able to experience at CES, and it all adds up to more substance and clarity. We just have to assemble these things into these shared immersive experiences that address different use cases. It starts at CES 2023.
I tend to agree with Steve and disagree a little bit with David on this as far as the role of CES. So in terms of, I agree that in the past, you would go to CES to have a sense for the next 12 to 18 months because technology cycles were shorter. So you could really have a sense of what was going to come to a store near you, right? Sooner rather than later. I think this is becoming harder as the cycles for something like the metaverse, but think also autonomous driving, right? We've seen cars on the show floor taking up more and more space over the past 3 to 4 years. And it doesn't happen overnight. And so what now for me, CES is useful for is, first of all, see what's still vaporware, despite all the marketing and everything else, right? And then recognize that those building blocks that Steve is talking about actually have value in their own right. And they are changing in a good way, richer way, our experiences. We just get sidetracked about that, goal that is 10 years out, and we get excited about that. And it's hard for consumers to then look at the building blocks. And I think that's what CES does. It gives you a better sense of how we're going to get there. And in doing so, giving you more opportunity for us, right, in the industry. I'm supposed to, give advice to vendors in the industry as to what the trends are and what we need to still do, both from a communication perspective in terms of how do we lead people to water in terms of caring about some stuff, and then who the competitors or even opportunity from those small companies that we were talking about at the beginning. What startups do we need to pay attention to? Who has, like this company that Steve just mentioned, something that will be a critical piece in delivering the ultimate experience.
Steve, one of the things that David has spent, 22 decades talking about, and that's work from home and the work experience. We saw a little bit of that last year at CES with a number of different products. The one that pops in my brain the most quickly is Canon and their AI system. But it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of the remote future of work. In other words, the most immediate future of work. There is the metaverse and there is that and the other. But do you see something as where we're headed as far as the workplace and where we work coming down the pipeline, either this January or next?
Well, definitely at CES 2023, we're going to see a variety of solutions that are geared for the hybrid work environment, which I think is generally the state of affairs in corporate America and really around the world. A lot of people that I talk to are spending some time in the office, some time at home, and that kind of flexes based on business needs and so forth. So what I think we can expect from CES from a technology perspective are more digital tools, things like cameras. I know Canon, in fact, last year, and I think they'll have a new version of this, but is essentially a camera that follows you, but then you can also, it's meant for virtualized or hybrid type training sessions or education. That's one use case. But if I have a whiteboard and I'm trying to point to things, and I really want, especially the virtual audience, to be able to see this, I can use a gesture and the camera will zoom in to whatever it is that I really want to focus on.
Yeah.
That's neat innovation. And
the Canon AMLO system, activate my line of sight. AMLO.
Yes. Thank you, David. Yes, that's it. So these kinds of new digital tools will empower our productivity in this new hybrid work age, which I don't think anybody's suggesting that we're all going to suddenly go back to the office. I think this is really going to become more of a permanent work shift. And so we need better tools. We can't just use the old cameras and so forth. We've seen a lot of innovation now, but around screens and other things. And a lot of this will probably be software. No doubt there will be other software-based tools that will be demonstrated at CES from different vendors and other ways. And then, yes, more of the metaverse type kind of virtualized, what's the next step beyond Zoom calls like this one? What's the next level of virtual collaboration? We'll probably get a taste of that at CES. And to Carolina's point, maybe it's not ready for prime time right now, but it's pointing to the future. And that's okay. Innovation moves at different paces, and some of it's sticky and some of it's not, but CES no doubt is great at really splashing a lot of cool tech innovation, and we get to see what's possible, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, I think that was one of my complaints. Being an admirer and a fan of CES, that was one of the complaints, Steve, you and I talked about, I think 4, 5, 6 years ago, is that CES, CES is almost 50 shows, but CES is almost 2 different shows. One is stuff that's coming down the pike, and one is ideas. And it's fair to, that people come back with comments saying, where are my 3-second movie downloads on 5G? Where's 5G at all? What happened? It never materialized. Where's the AR and VR? Where is me walking around with glasses in the city with augmented reality showing me the address? A lot of the concepts. Where's the self-driving car that was the conference table, so we could have meetings while we're coming home from the airport? A lot of the things that are shown there are really just ideas. And it's difficult for the layperson to understand the difference between the concepts that are being shown. You almost need like a little purple tag that says concept, as opposed to product, that this is a software solution or something that you're going to be able to get in the next 18 months. And I don't know, again, maybe it's just my bias, but I don't know how fair that is, because I don't know how many of those themes ever really come to fruition or how many we've just forgotten about. My lawnmower is still not talking to my sprinklers. And I'm waiting for that.
Well, they do have that. It's called Eureka Park. You just assume that everything in Eureka Park is not quite ready for prime time.
Right. Yeah. And in fact, in Eureka Park, we'll probably have close to 1,000 tech startups. So it's going to be certainly 800, maybe 800 to 1,000 from over 3 dozen, maybe 4 dozen countries. But yeah, that's definitely the epicenter of ideas, and a lot of startups looking chiefly for funding to get those ideas off the ground. And some of those ideas are mind-blowing. Just wow, I would have never thought about this, and this is true. But Carolina said it. A lot of these trends evolve along time series, and like with self-driving vehicles, okay, well that's complicated because that's not just.
It's not just the tech, right?
Right, exactly. There's the engineering and the technology has been way out in front of policy.
Yep.
For example. So but we still get to experience that, and CES writes a new chapter every year on these important trends that ultimately will reshape our culture, our economy, and we need to be there to see that, what's happening, what's going on. For example, West Hall will be festooned with electric vehicles, and that's great. More electric vehicles are awesome. We endorse that. What I'm more interested in is how the ecosystem to support those electric vehicles, chiefly battery technology and charging systems, how is
Grid.
that evolving?
Yep.
Yeah.
So these are the things that CES teaches us and shows us. And you're right, David, not all innovation is sticky. Some things that are shown at CES never make it to market. Some things, to our perception, may be impossibly slow getting to market. But there are manifold reasons for that. A lot of them just hardcore business reasons and market reasons. But nonetheless, it's cool to see this. And whether something was shown and it doesn't show up next year, I don't think that matters. What matters is the innovation, the ideas, the creativity, and this is why we go to CES.
But in a way, I think that's a little bit of kind of course correction that CES also provides, right? Because we've been talking about the show only in respect to COVID and going back, but we can't ignore the economic environment we are in, right? So there's a cost. The reason why some people might not show up is cost, is not COVID, right? Is the fact that everybody's pulling back. And I think when you're looking at innovation, the very exciting toy or whatever at a time where people are struggling to get to the end of the month doesn't always land well, right? And so I think that you've seen over the year, even with launches of more mature products like smartphone, really talking to solving real pain points that consumers have today, because that's where the money is going to go. The really shiny thing that is exciting, but at the end of the day, I am not sure what my return on the investment going to be. Are not landing well at a time of economic, pressure. And I think that's where VR and AR might be a little bit struggling this year, because, when you're factoring in the cost of a headset, the fact that I'm not actually in that environment 24/7, like I could be with a PC or a phone, as an example, right? Or the cost of the actual gaming and applications, then for a consumer, it's much harder to say, okay, yes, I'm going to make that jump and invest, versus starting from maybe a enterprise perspective, where that solution actually ends up being a cost saving, or either because I don't travel or because I'm able to speed up maybe support or anything like that. So it's interesting to see how technology also adapts based on the economic environment we're in.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And if I may just tag on to that, I would even wager that in periods like now of ostensible economic downturn, we have this inflationary environment, CES becomes even more important. Why? Well, because when it comes to inflation, there's two ways to beat inflation. One is raising interest rates, which the Fed has been very, very keen on. And that's really a blunt instrument. The other way is boosting productivity. And that's not only just in the consumer space, but also in the enterprise. And so that's one of the key trends I think I'll be looking for. And the key word here is automation, but also including cloud, AI, robotics, even cybersecurity. We talk about those things as kind of the new digital utilities. And don't forget, I mean, we assemble the global tech industry in Las Vegas every January, but also a lot of investors, the financial community attends, as well as government officials. And in these periods of economic downturn, government officials are looking like, what can technology do to help invigorate our economy? And let's take a look at some of these things. And so maybe Therefore, government officials come, they get educated about the capabilities of these technologies. They go back and they write policy that expedites these innovations into the marketplace. And that's what helps lift economies around the world and globally out of recession. So this is why I think it's even more important now, because we're going to learn about the next level of innovation when it comes to automating. We have a labor shortage. It's not just a US thing, it's a global thing. And robots used to be kind of a dirty word, and people would level arguments like, oh, you're killing jobs and with your machines and your robots. You don't really hear a lot about that anymore. People are actually like, bring on the machines, because I can't hire enough people to work in my warehouse. I need these tools to help automate things so I can take full advantage of the facility. So these are some of the things I'll be looking for that'll hopefully give us an economic boost. And 5G, David, you mentioned 5G. That's also an interesting story, because we're at a very crucial period in that technology with the recent publication of Release 17 that essentially is the starting blocks for industrial IoT. And from here, it's just going to get better. So it couldn't happen at a better time. And 5G, along with AI, cloud, robotics, and other enterprise-facing technologies, this is what's going to reshape the economy globally.
Carolina, we've got about 10 minutes here left. I want to hit on something you said, and that's talking about the economic position that we're all in. We're recording this the first part of November here in the States. We just came out of an election which filled our mailboxes with "Here, vote for me," and that was quickly, as David aptly pointed out on Twitter the other day, was quickly replaced with "Here, buy this product for Black Friday." What do you see coming down the pipeline for that? Because I mentioned the fact that, you can already buy, like today, Black Friday deals, what would be in essence Black Friday deals, and have them delivered. So is, the economic situation that we're in, the global recession, how is that impacting this next season that really does kind of make up a good percentage of, consumer electronics bottom lines?
Yeah, I think that consumers in general are being more pragmatic in the way that they spend their money. Obviously, there's always technology to upgrade and update. And of course, sales are what you're looking for, whether you're replacing your, smart refrigerator or your phone, you're looking at opportunity throughout the year to take advantage of discounts. And I think we've seen this trend a little bit over the past few years. Even, clothing stores open the day before or the day of Thanksgiving now. And I was like, instead of eating your turkey, you're going to go out and shop. So I think that cycles are lengthening. I don't know, as I mentioned, if, there's much frugality that we're going to be seeing this year in how consumers are going to spend and what they're going to invest in. But the reality is, if you're looking, for instance, at the PC market, there's been a lot of upgrades happening during the pandemic for necessity. So we are starting to now be concerned about the volumes for this year and next year, especially as from an enterprise perspective, costs are being looked at very carefully. As far as what things are going to be interesting, I think smart home is still something that consumers are investing, both because some of the features in these devices allow you to actually save from an electricity or a water perspective. So you have both a lower bill and also you're being more sustainable as a consumer. There are things that fit into more of the need from a consumer perspective, in my view, will be looked at. But certainly the sales cycle seems to be getting longer versus shorter, which is making for interesting earnings calls as well, right? Because now you don't have necessarily everything in one specific moment in time. And this is if you're looking at how Amazon plays around with the Prime Day, tells you how that plays as well as far as moving your earnings one way or another.
Carolina, I chuckled a little bit while you were giving that answer, not because of anything you said, but because of my specific circumstance. Our 13-year-old kitchen refrigerator started dripping earlier
Right
in the
there with
week,
you.
and you know, God, I've never done this before. I rebooted the refrigerator, you know, unplugged and plugged it back in, and it seems to be okay. So we didn't go out shopping for a new smart refrigerator. Mind you, the 50-year-old refrigerator in the basement's still working fine, but the 13-year-old one, and so we didn't go shopping for the new smart refrigerator or the one that shows you what's inside or that can order the milk for you. We went to our local appliance store that we have success with, and we said, "What do you have in stock that can be delivered?" And you know, we're definitely getting affected by supply chain
Oh,
still,
absolutely.
and just what products are on the market, because we can't be without a refrigerator in the kitchen. And I wasn't bringing the 50-year-old one up from the basement. My days of carrying refrigerators are over. So we got a call while we started recording. It's going to be delivered tomorrow. So,
There
and
you
thank
go.
God they take the old one away. But is that the one that my wife wanted? I mean, she's looking on Consumer Reports for the best rated one, and I'm saying, just call them and find out what they have. It's not really like we have a choice. So I think that's also affecting the buying cycles to a great degree, supply chain.
For sure. And supply chain is getting better, but we're not quite there yet. And we have started to have new restrictions in Asia because of a new wave of COVID that is impacting some availability. You know, Apple put out a press release, which was a little bit unprecedented, that put out a press release saying that iPhone 14 and Pro are delayed because of COVID in an area of China where they have a factory. And that's the reality that we live in still, right?
Everybody wants the pandemic to be over, and it's not over yet. Go ahead, Tim.
And just really quickly, if Apple can't get things made, then none of us have any hope at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the takeaway here is that we're much further out of the woods than we were last year, but we're not out of the woods yet with any of these things. But even having said all of that, what we gain from CES is enough value that we're still expecting more than twice as many people who were there last year to be there this year. Also, a lot of the travel restrictions have been lifted, so that's the thing. Steve, I'll ask you if you've spoken to Gary or the rest of your team. Are you giving us like little medals for the people that actually showed up last year? I thought that was a really good idea, and I'd love to wear that proudly on my badge. You know, like they used to have the quad candlestick if you stayed for a late game in San Francisco. There should be some sort of recognition for last year, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think instead we'll give you a hearty handshake and say welcome to CES.
Okay, well that's fine. So give us a little bit of the nuts and bolts and rundown of where can people find information and what are the dates and what's the big takeaway that people should have if they want to attend this year.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. So first, importantly, you need to register for CES, and then we have some housing tools at ces.tech. So when you register, you can also make your accommodation arrangements there. And this year, as I mentioned, we're expecting 100,000 plus attendees, about 2,000 exhibiting companies. And as you get closer to the show, you'll probably hear more from us talking about CES in context of a partnership that we have this year with a branch of the UN, the World Academy of Arts and Sciences. And we're really framing the show against this backdrop of what the World Academy of Arts and Sciences calls human securities for all. And these are a set of provisions. There are 7, we've added an 8th around mobility, the freedom to move. But essentially, these entitlements are human rights around shelter, financial security, personal security, food security, these kinds of things. And so that framework will really overlay the show and a lot of the exhibits and trends thereof. So that you can hear more about that. But the show is January 5th through 8th, and the show days are Thursday through Sunday. So make your travel plans now, and we'll see you in Las Vegas.
Okay, and Carolina, we should hopefully make it a point that you and I at least run into each other for a selfie. But you're also very concerned with ESG topics and human rights and things of that
Yep.
nature. I know that's one of the things that's most important to you. Is that going to be something that you're going to be focusing on this year at CES?
Absolutely. I'm making a point of going and scouting for companies that are particularly focused on digital divide, sustainability, and really accessibility. So looking at, even from a product perspective, or, even companies that stand out for their diversity and inclusion policies, and see what's out there.
That's great. So I know I will be there all week. I will be actually going to be there for New Year's Eve, so I'm going to be there early. And that's a bad
You're
idea.
really
But
keen.
it's my family's request. It's not me. But I will be there. I will be there for the press days and hopefully be doing some recording for, as I said, AVNation TV's Connected number 50. So Carolina, hopefully I'll run into you. Steve, same as well for you. Let's go around the horn one time and figure out how we can get in touch with people if we want more information. Steve, you gave the website before. Why don't you give the CTA's website as well so people know where to go to get information there?
Yeah, again, to register for CES, it's ces.tech/register. And to learn more about CTA, the owner and producer of CES, it's cta.tech.
You still have to talk to Gary about the little sticker on the badge about, I was here last year. I survived. I survived 12 years of high school. Carolina, how can people find out more about you and what you do and get in touch with you?
People can find me on theheartoftech.com or creativestrategies.com. I'm on Twitter still at the moment. We'll see by the time we hear this.
Day-to-day basis, yes.
Caro_Milanesi, or on Mastodon at Caro Milanesi at mastodon.online. I have a column on Force where you can read mostly anything that is related to ESG, future of work, and employee engagement.
Steve, Tim, did you have you opened Mastodon accounts yet?
Have not.
Okay. All right. Well, we're all over there. I don't know that that's the future, but you gotta.
No, I don't either.
Gotta hedge your bets. Gotta be somewhere. Tim, tell us about CTI and AVNation TV.
You can go find CTI at cti.com. For AVNation, go by avnation.tv. Avnation.tv, you'll find all of David's things there, as well as a host of other podcasts.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. We have, 10, 15 viewers? No, I know it's more than that, but we have a number of people that are interested in what we do, and we will keep putting out content as long as you guys keep following and be interested in it. As I said, the next show is going to be live from Las Vegas. We'll be visiting some of the venues, and again, I'm not going to try and duplicate some of the major news media outlets of how that event is covered, but I'm going to try and give you a perspective of what it's like being there, and some of the things you may not have heard of, and some of the other themes other than downloading movies in 5G or metaverse, but what I think is cool and coming to market. So for everyone at AVNation TV, I'm David Danto. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time.